Lord, love a duck. Hey, Jenny, you have the end. I can't open it. Who's that now?
What's Arnie?
All his nibs.
Mr. Partridge. Hey, Mr. Partridge.
Now what's the trouble?
Can't open the blinking door.
Come out. You hear me? This is Victoria Station. Honey.
Some drunk, sleeping it off.
Some just traveling first class.
Jim, let's have your ladder.
Yes.
Open that window.
Right.
I can't budge it, Mr. Partridge.
Budge is the word. You'll have to smash it then.
Right. Oh! Mr. Partridge, there's...
Run for help. Fetch the police. Don't stand there gaping.
This must be the place.
Yes.
You'll have to wait here.
But I'm not going to let you go in a place like this alone.
You must really. I'll be all right.
This meeting is now called to order. The unfortunate death in a train of one of our members, Mr. James Murphy, who departed this life by his own act while of unsound mind, has necessitated this meeting.
That's what you say, Mr. Merridew. But how do you know?
A verdict of death by suicide was returned tonight. This is the second occasion that we have been brought together by the mishaps to our members. The first being the passing away by natural causes of the late Colonel Forrester, whose charming daughter so gracefully honors us with presence here tonight. It is agreed in the pact drawn up and formally attested to by its founders that should the Grim Reaper overtake one or more, the interest of the deceased in the society will be divided equally among the surviving members. It is also provided for in the pact that Miss Forrester becomes a participating member. Consequently, the interest of the late James Murphy will be divided equally among the seven of us. I move that my fee for the necessary legal representation, funeral expenses, and a modest urn for the ashes be defrayed by our organization. I understand from the widow that he expressed a preference for cremation.
I second that.
All those in favor will please signify by raising their hands. Mr. Wilson. Mr. Baker. Mr. Deering. Mr. Pike. Yet? Good.
Has any provision been made for the widow?
None.
I presume that we could stretch a point in her favor.
Emphatically no. Things are complicated enough as they are.
Why did he want to kill himself?
Have you ever met his wife?
No.
No? Well, I have. A pest if there ever was one. We can attribute his death solely to the general deficiencies of one Annabelle Mary Murphy.
What would you deduce from this?
Obviously, an attempt to convey secret information.
Could you decipher it?
I could not, nor could you.
Would you like to bet?
Certainly.
How much?
Shilling.
My time is too valuable. The answer will be found in a large book because the numbers are large. I'd suggest the Bible. A client, Watson. Well, the widow standing under the street lamp.
A widow? Would you like to bet on that?
Of course.
Well, I'm not going down the street to ask her.
Ah. Won't be necessary. She's made up her mind.
So you deduce at a distance, eh?
Not in this case. I recognized her features. She's a Mrs. Murphy. Her husband was murdered 3 days ago.
You mean the man that was found dead in a train?
Exactly. Come in.
Mrs. Murphy to see you, sir.
Mr. Holmes, I'm in such a mess. Such a mess. My husband up and died without leaving me as much as a threepenny bit. It's a crying shame, Mr. Holmes. That's what it is.
Sit down and try to compose yourself.
Cut off without a farthing by an ungrateful good-for-nothing. Me, at my time of life. No dirty dog had a better wife. I've waited on him hand to mouth. Stood by his side morning, noon and night. And what does the stinker do? He ups and kills himself and leaves his money to a trust. And Mr. Merridew, yes. And there's another stinker if I never saw another. Won't even let me have a sixpence. He won't even let me have a halfpenny, Mr. Holmes.
Thaddeus Merridew, the lawyer?
Yes, the thieving hound, the dirty rat.
1 moment. You were married how long?
5 blessed long years.
Previous to your marriage, your husband served in the army.
You knew him?
Of it. He got his discharge in China.
Yes, that's right.
Then you married.
Yes, and I gave up everything, Mr. Holmes. You asked the proprietor of the Black Sow, he'll tell you. It was me that made that pub what it was.
And your husband had money.
Barrels of it. And when he wanted more, he used to come up to London and get it. It was that took him to London when he killed himself.
How do you know?
Well, Jim comes into my room. I was in bed with a piece of cucumber rind round my head, trying to cure an headache. He had a letter in his hand. See here, pig, he said. That was his pet name for me when he was drunk. I'm going up to London.
Did you read the contents of the letter?
Oh, it wasn't no letter. It was just a piece of doggerel.
Watson, make a note of Mrs. Murphy's address.
232 King's Cross Road. Then you'll undertake me, Mr. Holmes.
I'll take up your case.
Mind you, it'll have to be for love.
Love?
For Nix. I've heard as how you like working for nothing.
My interest is to bring the criminal to justice.
Oh, never mind about justice. Never mind about the crime. All I want is my husband's lawful money. And I want you to slap that thieving lawyer's face right across between his greasy, fat chops. Good night, Mr. Holmes. I'll be seeing you, and thank you kindly.
Good night, Mrs. Murphy. Deep water, Watson.
She needs some shady lawyer, not you.
Think so?
I'm amazed that you're wasting your energies on such a morbid trifle. Who is this Merridew?
London's most dangerous crook. The king of blackmailers. A gliding, slithy, venomous snake. Once in his power, he'll squeeze and squeeze until he's drained his victims dry. More than once I've had my net around him, but so far he's managed to wriggle his way out. The time has come, Watson. The time has come for Mr. Thaddeus Merridew.
Now, Miss Forrester and gentlemen, this concludes the meeting. I would like to have a word with you alone. I sincerely trust no further accidents will happen to occasion another meeting.
Never can tell.
Are you going my way?
Which way do you go? I go the other.
That leads to a dead end.
That's the way I go.
Good night, then.
Good night.
You must never mention anything that transpired at this meeting tonight, or even that this meeting was held. I saw a young man standing on the corner as I came in.
Yes, my fiancé. He brought me here and is waiting for me.
Oh. Then you're thinking of being married?
Yes.
I wouldn't if I were you. That is, at least until you've consulted me.
But why?
I can't explain. In a short time, this society will no longer exist. Until its affairs are winded up, it would be most unwise for you to marry. Your father would not have wished it.
What had my father to do with these people?
Didn't he ever tell you?
No.
Then I must respect his silence. Remember, not a word to a living soul.
He's after me. He's after me.
Captain Pike.
Oh! Oh!
Dead, shot through the heart. You wait here. What is it? What's happened? Are you hurt?
Someone... Look! It's disappeared. What does it mean?
The murderer must have had an accomplice and removed the body.
We must call the police.
No, the police will be here soon enough. We mustn't become involved.
But it's murder.
As you respect your father's memory, you must preserve a strict silence. Not a word. Come.
The body was pulled out of the Thames at 5 a.m. in the Limehouse district. The autopsy shows that death was caused by a bullet through the heart. The features, as you see, are unrecognizable, caused possibly by the battering of the head against the wharf where the body was found. The widow identified the body by means of that ring.
Ah. A very rare and very beautiful ring, Lestrade.
There isn't the slightest doubt the deceased is Captain Pike. The clothes were identified, initials on the collar and on the shirt. Further identifications are contained in these letters that were found in the clothing.
Where is the widow?
We asked her to wait. She's in the adjoining room.
Mrs. Pike,
Yes. You are...
my name is Sherlock Holmes. When did you last see your husband alive?
We dined together last night at the Savoy Grill. He left me shortly after 9 o'clock. I never saw him again.
You are staying?
At the Savoy.
You've been in London how long?
About a week.
And you live where?
At the Grange Shoeburyness.
When your husband left you, did he inform you where he was going?
No, but I fancied it was on a matter of business. He was a man very precise in his habits. When midnight came, and there was no sign of him, I became rather alarmed.
Midnight would be a late hour for him.
Very. As the time went on, I became more and more worried. At last I informed the police. An hour ago, I received a message to come here. where I identified the body of my poor husband.
By the ring.
Yes,
Did he always wear a ring?
that one, yes. I gave it to him when we were married.
That would be...
About 6 years ago in China. It is an heirloom belonging to my family and has been handed down through generations.
I see. Permit me to express my sympathy for your great loss.
Thank you. Is that all?
By the way, should it become necessary, shall I communicate with you at the Grange or the Savoy?
Through my lawyer,
His name?
Mr. Thaddeus Merridew. Good morning, Mr. Holmes.
Well, what do you make of it?
Murder, unquestionably.
Is that all?
That's all I have to say.
What do you think?
I think that the lady is a liar.
You! It's not possible! What do you want with me?
The papers are full of the Pike murder mystery. It seemed to me particularly senseless and futile. There was no motive. No motive. Peer deep down in the black heart of Thaddeus Merridew and you'll find a motive.
You don't mean to suggest that he had anything to do with it, do you?
I suggest nothing. Come in.
Inspector Lestrade to see you, sir.
Mr. Holmes, Dr. Watson.
What's the matter? You look worried.
Worried I'm up to my neck.
Again?
Before I can begin to finish one case, I'm plunged into another.
That's the penalty of being smart. You came to see me professionally.
Well, unofficially.
I see. Heads you win, tails I lose.
There's been a bad business during the night. An old gentleman. You'll find it a bit of a puzzler.
You mean you found it a bit of a puzzler?
We've left everything in status quo, hoping you'll favor us with an opinion.
Dead? Murder?
Suicide.
Come, Watson. Game is afoot.
He was well known as a stamp collector.
Very interesting.
What is it, Holmes?
That leads out to the garden, seldom used to judge by the rusty hinges.
Good morning, sir.
You can see that I've left everything untouched.
If a herd of buffaloes passed along, it couldn't be a greater mess.
You can take a smoke.
Thank you, sir.
What do you think?
There's been murder done. The murderer was a man. He was in the prime of life, 6 feet in height, has small feet, wears square-toed boots, limps slightly on the left foot, and smokes Trichinopoly cigars.
If it was murder, how was it committed?
The assassin was in the house before his victim arrived. He hid in the recess behind the window. While there, he smoked a cigar. He fired a shot which hit the victim on the back of the head and then dragged the body to where you found it. He left and returned some while later to fire a second shot, this time through the mouth. You'll find the mark of a boot clearly imprinted on the congealed blood.
What was his object?
To obliterate the effect of the first shot, hoping by so doing to transfer the crime from that of murder to one of suicide. Bullet number 1 you will find in the wall on the farther side of the room. The other will be found embedded in the body of the murdered man. Come, Watson. We mustn't keep Mr. Merridew waiting.
Mr. Holmes is still waiting, sir.
How long has it been now?
Fully 2 hours.
That's as it should be. You may show him in now.
Very good, sir.
Mr. Holmes, this is indeed a pleasure. I'm sorry to have kept you waiting, but I had to digest my lunch.
This is my friend and partner, Dr. Watson.
How do you do? Glass of port, gentlemen?
Thank you, no.
Cigar?
Thank you.
Be seated, gentlemen.
I represent Annabelle Mary Murphy.
Charming lady.
I'm empowered to act on her behalf.
Congratulations.
As you are doubtless aware, her husband came to a premature and sudden end.
Dear, dear.
My client is under an impression that certain monies belonging to the deceased are being unlawfully withheld from her.
By whom?
By you.
And you believe this delightful lady?
I'm paid to find out. An angry woman is hard to pacify. So I thought that an amicable discussion with you would put me in possession of certain facts with which I could prove to my client the absurdity of her claim.
I see. Is that all?
That is all.
Dear, dear, you're not smoking my cigar.
You refuse to assist me.
My dear Mr. Holmes, I have neither the information nor the authority. You see, until a few days ago, I was not aware that your distinguished client existed. In my profession, I deal with many cases impartially and legally without coming into personal contact with my client.
It won't do, Mr. Merridew.
Anything else?
May I trouble you for a pencil and paper?
Help yourself. Mr. Busybody Holmes.
By the way, I think you should know that another client of yours met his death last night. Mr. Malcolm Deering, found murdered. Good day, Mr. Merridew. Come, Watson. Cold-blooded monster. Well, I've given him something to think about.
Did you see what I saw? His feet.
What about it?
But they were small feet. And the boots
Well?
were square-toed, square-toed.
Really?
Yes, and did you remark the brand of cigar?
Cigar?
Trichinopoly. It was stenciled in big letters on the top of the box.
Is that all you...